We're now live, Chair.
Okay. Thank everybody for coming back to this meeting for a continuation of the meeting that was held a couple of weeks ago. My understanding is that we shall go from item number 10, number 11, 12, and then 14. So there's those are the subjects that we'll be discussing tonight. Town Centre Development Project Update, the COVID-19 Strategic Plan, the work programme, the forward plan, and any other items. So saying that, I understand that Councillor Sargent will not be with us. She's put her apologies in for a continuation. I think that she had to attend rather than being substituted from Andy, who was at Councillor Andy Sargent, beg your pardon, who was at the last meeting. So apart from that, I think everybody's here. So can we get on with item number 10, Town Centre Development? And Les, are you taking this? Is Les Snowden taking this?
No, Councillor, I think it's just the report for noting as far as I can tell.
Okay.
1 second, let me check. I think it's just the report, Chair.
Okay. Okay, there's I was just reporting this for noting, but it also says part of the recommendations is respond accordingly. Would any members of the panel like to respond accordingly? Oh, sorry, I meant to say I've just noticed we Mr. Condacor. There's we have a public speaker, Richard Condacor, who's but normally we would take the report first, but as I say, I was only here for noting just now. I would imagine the right procedure would be bring the public speaker just now. Mrs. Condacor, would you like to speak to the report, please? Sorry about that.
Thank you. Well, there were just a couple of things I really wanted to comment on, and hopefully the panel will sort of discuss a little bit more. I mean, some of the things are really quite exciting, and particularly the fact that there'll be more of a leisure offer, which I believe is much needed and overdue. I'm just concerned that things don't seem to be sort of overarching the whole thing and looking ahead enough, particularly the ring road improvements. I say improvements, I would put improvements in inverted commas if I was writing, air quotes, because I don't think it is improvements. And improving by serving the train station, by having a massive roundabout and loads of traffic right in front of it. What I want when I'm visiting a town or city is a clean, airy, spacious place without traffic, easy to walk into, cycle into, travel into by bus, train, that's affordable. And I think that some of these things aren't being sort of put enough emphasis in. And my main concern is really the risks involved. Obviously, things have changed massively in the last year, and I've not seen any signs that the whole scheme has been reassessed in the light of the issues with COVID and things. So I just really want some reassurance that things have actually been looked at, from that aspect. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for your statement. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much. It's most disappointing we haven't got an officer to explain what's going on with this scheme. This is such a big part of the future of the Nuneaton Town Centre, and officers should really have presented what was going on, updated us on what's happening with Abbey Street, and been there for us to ask questions. Just noting the report is totally inadequate. Going on to the details, Chair, Abbey Street is most exciting, but it's really, really difficult. It seems to be, with all the glossy stuff, based around a cinema, a hotel, and some other blocks. Clearly, a cinema is a basket case financially at the moment, and maybe in the future. The hotel, I know more than I'm allowed to say here, but I'm not at all happy with it. And in the report on page 6 and 7, it goes on to the Abbey Street. At the top of page 7, it talks about the scheme must demonstrate financial viability if it's to proceed or progress. Whereas I see it as progressing with a marginal business case, and the council's taking all the risks. So, yeah, it really hasn't been through a thorough business case process, which is understandable given COVID. But I think we do need those checks and balances, and some long stop points or something, so we can decide if the taxpayer is going to be at massive financial risk or not once we see how the vaccine goes on. On some of the other schemes, we're very dependent upon some of the things like the flood plan, which will actually make more the town less at risk from flooding, which is on page 9. That seems undeveloped, and it seems to have stalled. We've heard nothing about the flood scheme for about a year, but a year ago the plan was to take the river that flows down under Queen's Road and comes out by the council house and divert all that water down the Coventry Canal towards Manchester and let it go down the overflow into Weddington to join the Anchor. So they're protecting the Nuneaton Town Centre by sending yet more water to Weddington. That obviously has engineering challenges, and we really should have an update on that scheme, because if it just adds more water to the Weddington floodplain, it is totally unacceptable. If the mitigation is there, so we actually build somewhere between the canal and the Anchor, or above the canal, a large retention pond, then that could work. But we need a lot more information, Chair. And I think this report, we can't ask a report questions. There's lots of things in here that are ongoing, things being acquired or maybe not acquired. And we have two different schemes, the Vicarage scheme, Street scheme, and the Abbey Street scheme, without any sort of joined up thinking. We also have the closure of Debenhams and things that have happened since this report. So it'd be nice to see Les Snowden or someone here to ask questions about where we're going with that. There's obviously opportunities, and one of the good things we talked about is opening up the river. There's a scheme as part of transforming Nuneaton to actually knock through and open up the river. And it'd be useful to know if that's going to carry on through Debenhams and what the schemes in total are. So I hope other members will ask questions, as I seem to have been ruled out of time, even though I didn't think there was a time limit on committee members discussing stuff.
Sorry,
right?
it was me. I've just automatically set it to repeat. Sorry.
Okay, I'm almost finished, but I said I didn't think there was a time limit on committee members. But I say it would be nice to talk to Les Snowden and find out what's going on to follow up all these schemes, particularly with the sad loss of Debenhams, which was a real important thing for the Nuneaton Town Centre. And it may go the same way, I suspect, as a co-op, with part of the building being retained, the more interesting architectural bit, and part of it lost. But I say we do need to know what's happening with these plans, because there's so much in the melting pot. And since this report was written, we've also put in for this 25 million. I think we put a 24 million pound bid in to extend museums and do these cycle lanes and do this. So it would have been good for officers to tell us about that as well. I don't know if the officers can comment on what the 13 schemes put forward are, because it hasn't been put in the public domain, and I think we do need to know which schemes were put forward about 2 weeks ago. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Chair,
Simone?
can I just interrupt really quickly?
Simone,
think he's been deleted from the invitation list that I've sent out because he's not on it. But I know I added him, so I don't know if he's missing. I'm sorry. Let me just check. Sorry.
I can come in and add some context to the report, Chair, if you'd like me to.
If you will, please, Simone.
Okay.
Yes.
So obviously any sort of really detailed questions I can take back to Les, but just in terms of some broader context, this report does update the panel on the broad Transforming Nuneaton activity, which is a partnership. It's not just the Borough Council, it's the County Council as well, taking forward Transforming Nuneaton. And certainly the sort of flood and highways related projects, the County Council are leading on those rather than the Borough Council. In terms of Abbey Street, members will know that we did take a much more detailed report on Abbey Street through Cabinet in October, and there was a member briefing on that. So hopefully, you've had quite a lot more detailed information on Abbey Street already. In terms of the funding bids that Councillor Condacall referred to, we did submit our bid to the Future High Streets Fund at the end of July, actually. We still haven't had any decision yet back from government on the success or otherwise of that bid. We were hoping to have that before we submitted our Towns Fund bid, but as yet we are still awaiting that. And many of the projects that are mentioned in this report are tied up with the Future High Streets Fund bid. So hopefully, if we get notification of that very soon and we're successful, then we can start moving some of these schemes forward at a much quicker pace. And then in terms of the Towns Fund bid, Councillor Condacall was quite right that we submitted that bid to government last Friday. It was just under 25 million. Those projects at the moment are still confidential, and that's why we've not put them in the public domain. They were considered confidentially by the Towns Board. But again, as soon as we get a decision from government on whether that bid has been successful, at that point we've got to do much more detailed business cases on the schemes, and we'll be able to update members as we go through that process. And then just finally on Debenhams, obviously that is a very quite recent announcement in terms of the future of Debenhams. We are seeking some clarification in terms of the future of the Nuneaton store, but at this point we are still seeking that from Debenhams themselves, so there's unfortunately nothing I can update at this point. So I'll leave it there with just some very broad context, but I would hope certainly on Abbey Street that members have had much more detailed briefings on that already, but I'm happy to try and take any questions, maybe back to Les if they're very detailed questions, but I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Simone. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I suppose I better declare another interest, as I am on both the Transforming Nuneaton and on the Towns Fund Board. And I'm probably, apart from Simone, the only other one who is present who has been available at both of those meetings as Leader of the Opposition. I do share some of Councillor Condacall's reservations about member buy-in, particularly to the Towns Fund projects. I appreciate that the projects, 13 I think of which in total from memory, are there. I have had a copy of the bid which was submitted as a member of the board, but I'm conscious that there are members, quite rightly, of the business sector and the third party sector, health sector, education, etc., who have to be on there by virtue of the legislation. But by the same token, it will be this authority which will be driving forward and responsible for the funding if we get it and we have to spend it. So I think it is quite right that members should be allowed to see what is there on a confidential basis. So I would move a recommendation, Chair, that to Cabinet that all members briefing be put forward on what has been submitted to the Towns Board in the investment. Let me just pull up what it's called. Simone will remember what it's called quicker than I will.
The town investment plan.
Yeah, the town investment plan. That's it. I've got it up on my screen, but couldn't remember what it was called. That that there be an all members briefing on the town's investment plan on a confidential basis, so that members can see what has been submitted and ask questions and feedback, because these have been scored by other. I don't believe any councillor was involved in the scoring of the priorities, if I remember rightly. They're all other members of the Town Investment Board. But I think members have a right to know on a confidential basis, so I would move that as a recommendation to Cabinet there.
If you want to know, there's somebody coughing in the background. If you wanted a second, councillor, I'm quite willing to second that. So I don't have a particular problem with that.
Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else wishing to speak on this subject? No. Well, Simone, you've heard the comments, and if we've got to have a vote on taking it back to Cabinet, by all means, let's have a vote. Is everybody in favour of it going back to Cabinet for a confidential report to come back to all councillors?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Everybody else, I see no dissent, so I would imagine everybody's quite happy with that. So I'm pleased about that. Also pleased that, Simone, that this has actually gone through today, because I know I made plenty of jokes about last year about 2020 and the vision thing, you know. I don't think anybody was expecting the COVID-19 to come along and scupper practically everything that we decided to do. But it was seen positive as a step forward of doing something really spectacular for Nuneaton. We know we've got the Bedworth thing going on at the same time, or trying to get the Bedworth thing on at the same time. But it would be a shame for us to cry wolf too often, because I think there's some very advantageous things that can happen within the borough, and if we can show the positivity that's actually been throughout the council, that we want things to move and want things to happen. We know the particular problems with pictures, we know particular problems with Debenhams. Those things could not be foreseen, but the vision thing has still got to be there, and the vision will be next year once this stuff's out the way, and perhaps we can look forward to summertime next year when things are going to get back to I'm going to use the old dread air, you know, to a new normal, whenever that will be. So if you can take that, Simone, back to the Cabinet and those concerns that we have. And we'll take the next subject, which is you again, Simone, please, the COVID-19 Statutory Recovery Plan.
It is. Thank you, Chair. So this is the Council's COVID Strategic Recovery Plan covering 2020 to 2022. I would just emphasise that this is a recovery plan. It is not intended to be the Council's response to dealing with the pandemic, and at the time of drafting this, we were not in the grip of a second wave quite in the way that we are now. So this was drafted with the intention of being a recovery plan coordinated with the county and other districts as well. But unfortunately, we have had to step back from this a little bit, just because we are back in response mode and dealing with all the implications of the second wave. But this has been put together themed around, well, there's three key themes, and I'd just add that they are consistent with the county-wide COVID recovery group that we did have in place as well. So the county and all the districts and boroughs in Warwickshire signed up to the themes of economy, health and community, and then organisational. So we have tried to be consistent with those county-wide themes and have ordered our plan in that way as well. You've got a copy of the plan at Appendix A, and apologies, my system keeps freezing, so I can't quite see it as well as I should be able to. But you have got a copy of the plan at Appendix A. We've got a number of actions under each theme with the timescale, the responsible officer, and any additional comments. We will be bringing this back to Cabinet for an update after Christmas, but I think we just need to get through the point we're in now, really, with dealing with the impact of the second wave and the council being in tier 3 at the moment, and everything that brings in terms of establishing the testing and vaccination sort of procedures. But obviously this is here for the committee to review, and I'm happy to take any comments or any recommendations, obviously, that you may want to make back to Cabinet on it. But again, please bear in mind this is a recovery plan, and it has been slightly overtaken by more recent events. So I will leave it there, but obviously happy to take questions.
My understanding that the member of the public, Mrs. Condegore, did you wish to speak to this subject?
Yes, so I was going to say something. I mean, Simone's actually sort of almost covered what I was going to ask. I was just going to say that I hope it's actually written rather than a sort of document. It's a live document, and items are sort of added and subtracted as we go. But it would be quite nice if that was actually available to the public, you know, to be able to look at, because the thing that you've got there is very sort of set in stone at a point in time. And obviously, as you've already mentioned, things have changed dramatically, you know, since then. You're sort of thinking this is the end and this is how we're moving forward, whereas it unfortunately is far from the end. So just wondered if it could be sort of more an ongoing live document rather than a printed sort of thing.
If I just come back on that, Chair, yeah, just to say, management team review this weekly, or it's a standing item on management team agenda, and we do. This is actually an Excel version, I think might be a Word version, but it is a working document that we review on a regular basis. This version was the sort of the more public facing version that was going to be published. That's why it looks like this, but there is absolutely a working version that sits behind this as well.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Ross. D. Speak to us, D. Speak to us. Okay, for some reason we can't seem to get Mrs. Ross. Anybody else from the panel wishing to speak?
I think Councillor Condacall might be indicating, Chair.
I haven't got.
Oh,
I have now. Councillor Condacall.
Thank you, Chair. I think the system's gone incredibly slow, so hopefully Dee will come back in a mo, but things seem to be coming and going quite slowly. Very good work, a lot of the stuff in this recovery plan. There's probably a few areas that have changed over time, and one thing I don't know if we're doing it, it talks about PPE for market traders and town centre businesses and things, is whether we're doing more to do with cashless payments, because people have got quite reluctant to use cash, and people have also moved over to be quite cashless. And one part of the recovery plan I think might benefit from actually giving advice or bulk buying those sort of terminals for the market traders and things that are sort of micro businesses to actually take contactless payments. And the other thing that residents have told me is they're appalled at some of the parking machines and how they're so arcane and coins and and whether they could actually be refreshed as well as part of and I think in terms of attracting people to come to the town centre, I think contactless payment or phoneless, where you just touch your phone on the parking machine or something, because it really is 1980s technology we've got in our car parks, and the ones we're keeping long term, I think they do need a bit of a refresh, and as part of the recovery plan, I think it's a good time to refresh those. The other concern a resident told me about was the museum. They're very worried about the museum. Obviously, it's been closed. Staff get quite demoralised, and it's and it'd be quite good to have a bit about the museum in the recovery plan. We all love our museum. I hope. I think it's probably across all the groups. And with City of Culture coming to Coventry, I really do think a lot more about the museum and how we particularly at the same time as City of Culture, really try and get a set of events ongoing and give it a positive outlook, a bit of a lift, because we do need to start and build back better. I think the museum is a good part of that. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, the other thing we really are struggling with is when we get into recovery. And unfortunately, we're not getting vaccines very quickly in Nuneaton. There seems to be no timescale for us getting vaccinated, and that is a real downer. But it'd be really good to get some progress on that, because that then dictates when we get people back using things. Because obviously, 28 days after the first vaccination, they should start to be able to be safe to do more stuff. So I really do hope we can chivvy up the people providing the vaccination for the general public, and we can actually start getting a bit of good news, if you know what I mean, some positive stories, and sort of put out the recovery planners. We're getting new parking machines. We've got cashless payments for the markets. Actually string out sort of positive news stories, and particularly a positive news story when we've got a timescale for the vaccination about museums and events. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Take all those things into consideration, Simone, please. Mrs. Ross, can we get you now?
I hope so. It was just to, thank you, Chair, just to ask Simone if council is involved with any of the vaccinations or the testing going on at the car park and the fire station, and I think United Church, I believe, starting Monday. And I wonder if there's any involvement, by the council in that, because I haven't seen anything advertised. I've just heard it from different people that it was starting apparently on Monday.
Simone, do you know anything about that?
So the Abbey Street car park is going to be, or has already just started as that'll be a walk-in test centre.
Yeah.
The Nuneaton fire station has been used temporarily as the lateral flow testing. So that's the kind of mass community testing for asymptomatic people. That's being used temporarily at the fire station, but will be moved to the United Reformed Church. I believe it's next week. So the Abbey Street, those that are symptomatic and that have got COVID symptoms and need to have what's known as a PCR test. The fire station and then the United Reformed Church is going to be used as a lateral flow test, which is the quicker turnaround test for those that are asymptomatic. They are the kind of the organisation and the logistics around that are being led predominantly by Public Health Warwickshire. We are obviously heavily involved in that and have been supporting them. I was aware that there was comms out there about it, and certainly the lateral flow testing has been very well subscribed this week, but there's also a site in Bedworth as well. But I can take that back and just make sure that we've got the comms absolutely right on that. But as I said, I'm sure that the take up for the fire station on the Bedworth site has been very good this week. In terms of vaccinations, that is being led by the NHS. Again, we are supporting them, but that is much more at an early stage, and they're moving almost hourly. So I wouldn't want to give you an update on that because it probably will be wrong by the time I finish saying what I could say.
I understand Saunders Hall and Bedworth is one of the test sites as well. So those
that's the lateral flow. Yeah, that's the lateral flow site. For asymptomatic. Yeah.
Are you all right with that question? Answer.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon. Thank you, Simone.
Okay. Councillor Guttridge.
Thank you, Chair. I'm rather disappointed with the Councillor Kondaka about the staff of the museum. Myself and my wife have been to the museum quite often recently, particularly to look at an art exhibition which a local artist was exhibiting his works. And the staff could not do enough for us. I'm getting a little bit tired of this staff bashing. I mean, we've got some damn good staff in this borough. Just look at our bin men. They've worked through COVID and we've never been let down by us with the bins. I get very tired. It's about, we've got some very good staff and they are a credit to this borough. And I get very tired and angry when this man keeps on about the museum staff are not this. The museum staff went beyond the call of duty with myself and my wife. They gave us a programme. They pointed us in the right direction. They came and asked us if we were all right. I cannot speak highly enough of the staff. Thank you.
And I understand, Councillor, that there's some of the staff have been used for town centre events and various other things, so they haven't been exactly mothballed in a corner somewhere. So they've been active amongst the community. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. With all recovery plans, there's always going to be an element of time lag. My concern is that as a scrutiny panel, we aren't going to be able to scrutinise this in as much depth as we probably should as councillors responsible for this authority and the multi-million pound spend that we have. And the way that scrutiny is currently set up, having one scrutiny panel covering virtually everything apart from external affairs, doesn't help. So,
excuse me a minute, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Kondaka, I understand you've got a personal explanation or something.
Yeah, it could have waited until after Chris has finished, but I absolutely disagree with John Guttridge. I did say I didn't say anything against the staff. What I said is they need some optimism about their future and plans. the staff at the museum are absolutely wonderful, and I did not bash the staff at the museum, and it's a disgrace saying I did. I'm fully supporting the staff. What I said is we need to put something in the plan so they've got something to look forward to and be part of this recovery programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the explanation, Councillor. Councillor Wilson.
Can I just say, Chair, my name is Julian, not John.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Julian Guttridge. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I think there are some things that we can do which are quick and easy wins if they are possible. So, for example, if we have empty shop frontages, for example, that are within the council ownership, or even if we can discuss with the owners of the property if they aren't. I'm sure that there are some students from primary or secondary schools who could paint something to cheer up the town centres, for example, whether it be the rainbows that we saw throughout the high points of the COVID crisis. Something to cheer up the town centres would actually, I think, cheer up some of the residents when they actually come in, if there's something which could be done with shop frontages, rather than looking bare and empty, that we try and encourage a bit more colour into the town centres. But I do believe Councillor Condacour has a point about the parking charges. And when I did finally manage to get away from work after seeing it through COVID, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Cornwall in between lockdown 1 and lockdown 2. And the number of people who were actually using alternative methods for paying for car parking was astonishing. And I have to say, I can bear this out from personal experience. The amount of cash I now carry is substantially less, and I certainly carry even less change than notes, for example. And I think we are rather behind the curve on this one as an authority, and I think we need to do more, if at all possible, to help people pay in contactless ways. It's not just good enough having text things, but also contactless payments, etc. And also, there was this app that I used when I was down in Cornwall called Just Park, which was quite easy to use as well, where you just identify the site you're in by a couple of digits and you put all your payment details in once, and it sorts it out for you wherever you are. Because if and when we do start to return to a level of normality, we know that the amount of car parking revenue is going to actually decrease substantially compared to where it would normally be. I think in conversations I've had with Simone, the best estimate was going to be about 70% reuptake. I think that may be slightly optimistic, and I think there's an argument over the levels that we would possibly say, because at one point I think Simone told me parking charges was down to 10% of normal. So if we are putting barriers in the way for payment, people won't come in, or they'll go elsewhere where it's free parking. If you're on one side of town, you can go into Alliston, etc., and get free parking where you don't have to worry about finding change or how you pay. If you're on the other side of town, of Nuneaton town, you can go into Hinckley and elsewhere where it's easier to pay. Or if you're in Bedworth, you can just park in one of the free large multi-storey, one of the free parks from the car parks from the Tesco's or the other one. So it's a very competitive market, and we need to do everything we can to actually help shoppers pay when they are in. I prefer the charges to be lower to actually entice them in as well. But if we are going to charge them, let's make it as easy as possible to make those payments, Chair. So I think Cabinet really needs to look at that urgently.
I think that would be part of the modernisation anyway, because I think everybody uses these cards now and just clicks them on the side, and then no money passes hands. Well, the money eventually gets to them. But Councillor Tandy.
Thank you, Chair. There's a lot I could say, but probably only start arguments if I did. But I would like to go the point that Councillor Condor said about the museums, events, giving them something to look forward to. I think we'd all of us like something to look forward to, but it doesn't very much like we're going to be having anything more to look forward to at the moment, because we're still in tier 3 and we do not know yet whether or not there will be, as expected, another huge spike after Christmas. And I think that is part of the problem with members keeping wanting updates on these reports when things keep moving either one way or the other, and when we're not getting definitive decisions made about the way forward. As far as the vaccinations go, I don't know why we are being asked to give reports about it. This council isn't responsible for the reports, except perhaps providing the buildings where they're going to be going into. It's the CCG, it's the NHS, it isn't Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council who will be setting up the vaccinations. And as for not getting any information about it, I appreciate not everyone is on the external overview and scrutiny panel, but we had an almost 3-hour meeting a couple of weeks ago where we had representatives from the County Council, from the CCG, from the George Eliot Hospital, the CEO from the George Eliot Hospital, telling us about everything that was happening with all of those organisations. So I'm really a bit nonplussed as to why we seem to be getting attacked about the fact that that it seems to me that the council are not doing anything right, which is quite normal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. Simone, you've heard all the comments. Can you take some of them back and to the cabinet? And we know what's happening out there, and know this new thing's coming up. It's going to take a wee while for it to come through, and I think that and it'll take a wee while after it comes through to actually get the second jag or whatever we're supposed to be getting. Councillor Evans, you wish to say something?
I do indeed, yes. Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to come back on the point about contactless payments. And whenever I visited places outside of the borough before coronavirus, obviously, everywhere I went to when I went to car parks, they offered contactless payments. And to my knowledge, we are the only council in the Midlands that doesn't offer contactless payments. And I think that's actually really bad. There's a financial benefit to us if we were to introduce contactless payments. It means that we don't need to get up every week. And it's far easier for us to collect that money. So when you say this is going to go back to cabinet, will it go back to cabinet? Because with respect, we get told this and it doesn't end up going to cabinet. So Councillor Tandy, we're not discussing car parking charges. We're talking about contactless payments at meters. So actually, I think this needs to be discussed by cabinet. So can we actually put that forward as a recommendation, Chair?
I don't see any problems with putting that forward, because I think that the COVID-19 has shown us perhaps a different way that we can actually do business. So there's of course, it's just not easy enough, because it's going to cost money in order to change these things over, and I don't know how much that would cost. So by all means, take it to cabinet and see what comes back, and see what we can modernise the car payment system to make it easier for everybody. Because there's next year is going to be different, hopefully, and we can all look forward to next year with some sort of grace and with some sort of thanks for everybody who has struggled. And there has been a lot of people who have struggled, particularly those ones that are actually looking after us, and the hospitals and old people's complexes and homes and various other places. So there's a lot of goodwill out there, and there's a lot of thanks all over the place as well. So there's I see what you're saying, Councillor. Regardless whether we have contact payment, people still have to pick up and pay for. We'll still have to go and collect coins from car parking. I don't think we could change it overnight, just as simple as that. So we can take those concerns forward, and thanks, Simone, for your report, and thanks, Councillor Evans.
So can you just confirm, so it's on record, is this going to cabinet to be discussed by cabinet members?
I just said that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks.
Simone, could you take that forward to Cabinet and discuss it as part of your of whatever you've got to do, yeah?
Yes, so just to be clear then, Chair, is that a formal recommendation from the panel to take a report to Cabinet regarding contactless payments? Is that the conclusion?
Well, I assumed that was the conclusion,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
does anybody disagree with that? I see nobody disagreeing with it, so take it forward and see what we can do for the not too distant future. Thank you, Simone.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, so we get on to item 12, is it? The forward plan. This is for the work programme done. And to remind anybody that the forward plan attached for note information. Item 13, work programme could be. I'll still encourage people, if they feel that there should be a work programme set up or things we should look up for this internal panel, by all means submit the appropriate forms and we can get that done. And lastly, item number 14.
Sorry, Chair, I raised my hand.
Oh, come on, Councillor. Sorry, I never seen you. Sorry.
Just a quick question on the forward plan. It mentions the MRF supply agreement for December. I didn't see that happening. Is that happened?
I've just heard from Brent that it's going to be in February now because they're waiting on some, I think, data or something. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank
you all
you.
right, Councillor? Yeah, at least you got up to date reply.
That's fine. I say it was on the plan and we've passed December Cabinet.
Yeah. Okay. And of course that brings us up to any other items. I haven't got any other items, and I'd like to thank everybody for the forbearance and their attendance tonight, and wish you all season's greetings, Merry Christmas and all that sort of stuff. And of course, let's hope we have a happier new year, or New Day, as we might say, than last year, because it can't get any worse than last year, surely. So as far as I'm concerned, thank you one and all the best. And Paul, could you switch off the live stream, please?